Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Career Foundry event this evening. And I'm very, very happy to welcome Maureen to the channel once again. If you've been watching Career Foundry events, you'll know that Maureen is a mini Career Foundry celebrity, and we're super happy to welcome her back this evening to present how to become a UX designer in 2023. Now, I know a lot of people are joining this evening. If you're joining on Big Marker, just drop your name, where you're joining from, and also maybe just to kick off the debate and to make this as interactive as possible, why you're interested in becoming a UX designer in 2023. We usually get a super international crowd, so it's great to see everybody. So yeah, just drop your comment on Big Marker, or if you're watching on LinkedIn and YouTube, just drop your comment there. Let me introduce myself first. I'm William, Events and Communications Lead here at Career Foundry. Career Foundry is the online school for your career change into tech, and we guide you from complete beginner to job-ready professional in UX design. We're not any old school. Our programs are so flexible that you don't need to quit your job, and we offer one-to-one mentorship with a mentor and a tutor, and a job guarantee if you don't land a job within 180 days of graduation. There's going to be a live Q&A at the end, so anyone watching this evening, just drop questions on the chat on the right-hand side. We'll get those answered at the end. And yeah, that's about everything. Maureen, I don't want to steal your thunder. This is we're very much looking forward to the presentation, and we'll take all questions at the end. So thank you so much for everyone for joining, and I'm going to hand it over to Maureen. Maureen, it's all yours.
Thank you, William. Yeah, hi. Nice to be back here again. I've done a couple of webinars with CareerFoundry in the past, or you might have seen me on YouTube where we've done videos together. But if you don't know me, my name is Maureen. I studied with CareerFoundry in 2017, so that's already a while ago. And currently I work as a senior product designer at Zalando, which is Europe's leading online platform for fashion. So it's like a fashion, a platform where you can buy clothing and shoes and beauty articles. And I've also been helping UX beginners to kickstart their UX journey on Instagram, where you can find me under at ux.collection. I realized that actually last month was my 3-year anniversary. So I've been doing this for 3 years already. Today I want to talk a little bit about how you can become a UX designer, especially in 2023. So what we'll talk about today is, first of all, is UX design something for you? Then we'll talk about what are design methods and processes that you should know as a UX designer. How can you structure your learning? What's the value of practicing, and what kind of tools do you need to practice? How can you build a network with other designers? And then lastly, we talk about your portfolio. So today's webinar is more focused on very practical steps that you can take to become a UX designer. I will not talk as much about the design process or about certain methods or tools, but it will really be about what do you need to keep in mind if you want to become a UX designer. And the first step is one that a lot of people skip, which is ask yourself if UX design is for you. And I think that especially today, this is a very relevant question because the UX industry is still booming. And maybe this is also the reason why you are here in this webinar tonight, we have seen some changes in the tech industry in general. Big tech companies have laid off a lot of people. I've heard from many people that are looking for an entry-level job that the market is quite competitive. So you might be asking yourself, is it still a right time to become a UX designer? Can I still become a UX designer, or is it not worth it anymore? What do I need to become a UX designer? So I hope with this webinar that I can answer some of those questions. And I think one really important step whenever you start any kind of new career is to ask yourself, why am I motivated to do this? What's my motivation? Why do I want this? So the first step before you research any boot camp or course, or before you start working on your portfolio, you'll have to ask yourself, is UX design for me? So what do you hope to find in a UX industry career? Or what kind of role would you hope to find? And I think one of the reasons why the market has become so competitive for entry level designers is because in the past years, we've seen a lot of people following some kind of trajectory to become a UX designer, and they might not have really thought about what their motivation is. And now, when we see that there is inflation and companies are laying off people, this motivation part actually becomes really important, because if you are in here just to get rich really fast, I can already promise you that you will be disappointed. The market is more competitive, so you will need that passion and that motivation to help you get through this process. Um, and a good way to start is to think about what your strengths and weaknesses are. What is it that you really enjoy doing? What is it that you do well? Maybe you can ask your friends or family. If you are already working, you could ask your colleagues for feedback. What are things that I could do well, or what are improvement areas? And map those to the UX designer job roles that you can find out there. So what is it that makes a good UX designer? And can you see some of these strengths and weaknesses map to the job roles that you'll find? And what is also really important to keep in mind, and this was something that I wasn't very aware of when I started my UX journey, is that there are way more roles than just design roles. So if you are interested in the UX industry, but you might not really feel so secure about a designer role, you should know that you can also become a UX researcher or a UX writer or a UX strategist, a manager. So there are a lot of different specialties within the UX field, and this might actually help you to find a role that might fit your strengths better, or maybe it might fit your prior work experience better. So, for example, if you are already working as a copywriter and you're interested in UX design or in the UX industry, then design is maybe something that puts you off, but UX writing could be something that's really interesting to you. So, before you start with anything else, really take some time to look inside and think, what is it that I hope to find in this career? Is it something that truly fits me? Is it something that fits my strength, my profile, the experiences I've already had in a previous career, for example? And take stock of where you're standing right now. So, when I wanted to become a UX designer, there were a lot of articles online that talked about top 10 traits of a good UX designer, or this is the character a good UX designer should have or should be. And I find these articles a little bit problematic, because as diverse as people are, that's how diverse UX designers are. So it's really hard to say UX designers should be extrovert or introvert, or they should be really good at coding, or they should be really good at this and that. So what I took is I looked around and asked myself, my UX design colleagues or my product design colleagues, what do they have in common? What kind of traits do I see within my colleagues? And I've made a list, but it's not complete. It's just something to get you started and see, is that something that I recognize within myself? So, what I found is that a lot of my colleagues are great collaborators and communicators. And the reason why this is so important is because as a UX designer, you're not just sitting behind your computer and designing away the whole time, but you're actually doing a lot of collaboration work. You have to work together with many different teams. You have to teach people what UX design is, what the value of design is. So if you are someone that enjoys bringing people together, that is really good at communicating, that really likes collaboration, then you have something that can really be a strong asset if you want to become a UX designer. What I also found was that UX designers are oftentimes detail oriented and analytical. And the reason why that is important is because when you're working on a new concept or you're working on a new app, for example, you have to be able to think about all the different use cases that customers might use this app for. So it is very important that you're able to think scenarios through and to be analytical and take data and translate that into a concept. What I found was that a lot of designers or a lot of my colleagues are also very proactive and structured people. And we have to be because, like I said before, you are building bridges between different teams. So you have to be someone that enjoys to take initiative, someone that enjoys researching things on their own, someone that, as some companies might describe it, is a self-starter. And sometimes that is used in a bit of a negative context, but I think it is a big benefit if you're someone that likes to take ownership and likes to start things out of their own initiative. As designers, we're also working a lot with research. So we're doing a lot of interviews with users. We're taking those insights to help us come up with concepts. So that means that you also have to be someone that enjoys this research part and someone that has an easy time empathizing with the people that you're talking to. If you're someone that enjoys getting to know other people, asking them questions about how they think, what their behavior is like, that will definitely help you. And since we do so much research, and you will often find yourself in a project where we have a lot of questions and no answers. We are there to ask the questions and then give the answers. It's really helpful if you can deal with uncertainty. So if you're someone that says, I need to know exactly what's going to happen, and uncertainty stresses me out, then that might be something to really think critically about. And if maybe that is something that you can practice more, because this uncertainty is certainly something that you will face when you become a UX designer, and you have to kind of find comfort in that as well. And lastly, like I said before, UX design is an industry that is booming, but that doesn't mean that every company knows what UX design is. In fact, within companies, a lot of people don't know what UX design is. And you will need to teach them that, and you will need to explain why UX design is necessary and what the value for them is in that. So I find that in my role, I'm actually doing a lot of teaching and a lot of evangelizing UX. And that also means that presenting, communication, bringing people together, supporting people with my toolkit and with the methods that I've learned is a very, very important part of my job. So when you see this list, you might think, oh, but what if I'm an introvert? I don't like to talk with a lot of different people. Does that mean I cannot become a UX designer? No, I don't think so. I think there are actually a lot of really good UX designers that are also introverted, but it does mean that those parts that go about talking with other people, stakeholder management, communication, these might be parts where you have to put in some extra effort and that you have to practice. But I also found that introverted people are oftentimes also the people that are very analytical, that are very detail oriented, that are very good listeners. So these are things that make them really good UX designers. And that's what I mean with it's a bit difficult to say a UX designer needs to be extroverted or introverted. You have great designers in either camp, but these are some of the things that I find are really useful or essential to have. And you can pick it for yourself and see what is it that I still need to practice more, what is something that already comes natural to me, and kind of see where your path might take you. So after you figured out if UX design is something for you and you've done some inner work and you've come to the realization that yes, UX design or any other role in UX is actually something that you want to pursue, then it's time to learn about how we work as designers. And in this particular chapter, I'm mostly going to focus on design methods and processes. Researchers and writers might have different ways of working, but I'm talking about my own experience as a designer. So I'll tell you what I did. So I think a good place to start is to understand what UX design means and what a UX designer does. That sounds pretty straightforward, but it is actually pretty hard to find a definition of UX design and what a UX designer does, because it really depends on the company. There are some overarching processes or ways of thinking, but the actual tasks that you will do might differ from company to company. So some companies might focus more on research, while the other companies might focus more on visual design, for example. So do some research. There are a lot of articles online that explain what UX design is. Do some research on job roles within your area to see what is it that companies are looking for. How do companies define the role of a UX designer? And then also learn the bigger context in which UX design lives. And this is something that I didn't do, and I wish I was more aware of that in the beginning. Because what you'll definitely find, or maybe already stumbled upon it, is this thing called the design thinking process, or some people call it the design thinking mindset. And it is important to realize that the design thinking mindset or process, or however you want to call it, learning that does not automatically make you a UX designer. What design thinking is it's a way of tackling problems. It's a way of looking at a challenge and then using different steps to master that challenge. So whenever you Google design thinking, you will find that it consists of 5 different steps. I'm not going to go too much into that. We will actually have a different webinar on that coming up if you're interested in that. But what the design thinking mindset or process does not take into account is that UX design in a company has to work with a lot of different disciplines that don't necessarily use design thinking as a way of working. So therefore, I would really recommend you also look into how do UX designers work together with developers or together with marketing teams or with sales teams. And if you Google product development frameworks, you will stumble upon things like Scrum or an agile way of working or Kanban. And I really encourage you to dig a little bit deeper into these things, because we as designers are just a small part in this machine that builds products like apps and websites. And we have our own little design way of working, but we also have to work with non-designers that have their different ways of working. So stay aware that whenever you read about the design thinking process, mindset, whatever you come across, it is something that can help us solve problems out of a user-centric perspective, but it's not the one and only way to create products. And I wish I knew that earlier, because that would have made my job way easier. So if that is something that you can learn from me, I hope that is what you can take from it, that design thinking It's just one way to do things, but there are more product development frameworks in which we will have to work as well. So now that you've figured out a little bit what UX design is and you've done some reading on design thinking and agile frameworks and whatnot, you might find yourself lost in the weeds. And I definitely was completely confused when I started my UX journey because there was so much information online and I didn't know where to start. And this was 6 or 7 years ago. In the past 6 and 7 years, it's only become more and more overloaded with information. There are only more and more resources. So it is really important that you structure your learning, that you think critically about how am I going to learn the things that I need to learn. For me, the way to do that was to enroll in a course, but there are many different ways that you can structure your learning. So it is important that you find a way that works for you. And I oftentimes get questions from people that ask me, should I get a degree in UX design? Should I take a boot camp? Do you think it's good enough if I do everything myself? And the answer, really, my most honest answer to that is all of these things are good and legitimate. You can enroll in a boot camp, you can go to university, you can do self learning. They're all good ways to break into the UX field. And I know designers that come from very diverse backgrounds that did boot camps, that went to uni, that did everything on their own, and they all ended up in very good positions in companies. What is important is to ask yourself, what is it that would work for me? And therefore, you first have to define your learning style. And I know that it is very tempting to just enroll in a course or to just take a boot camp or to just go to university and think, well, I'll do this, I'll invest time and money in this, and then everything will sort itself out. But the challenge with that is that if you pick a learning way that does not fit your learning style, it might actually take a lot of time or you will waste a lot of money because it's not the right choice for you. So before you enroll in a boot camp or before you commit yourself to a university degree, think about the best way for you to learn. Are you someone that really likes to learn alone? Or are you someone that gets really motivated sitting in a class with other students? Are you someone that wants to do everything at their own pace? Or do you need a schedule? Are you someone that likes to learn by doing? Or are you more a theoretical person? All of these things are all okay. You just have to figure out what works for you. And a very important thing that I also want to acknowledge here is it also depends on your time and budget, because boot camps can save you a lot of time because they are shorter, but they can also be very expensive. And learning on your own is something that you can do completely for free. And I can really guarantee you that you can find all the information you need for free on the internet, but that takes a lot of time because you will need to find everything yourself. You will need to build a curriculum yourself. So these are the things that you have to think about. Are you someone that has that time at their disposal? Then go for it. If you like to study at your own pace, if you are disciplined enough to do everything on your own, or if you already have some community, then you can definitely follow that self-learning journey. But maybe you're someone that is more tight with time. Maybe you have to keep up with your family, or you have a full-time job or whatnot, and you cannot really dedicate hours and hours or weeks and weeks on your journey, and you want something that's a bit more structured, then a boot camp or an online course might be a better fit for you. So, to talk about my own experience, I decided to take an online course, and there were multiple reasons that led me to this decision. When I enrolled in the course, I just finished university. I was just working for 2 years, and the idea of going back to uni and dedicating 4 years of my life on studies again was just not appealing to me. I did not want to do that. I also didn't have the money to do that. And so getting a degree was already something that was just off the list for me. That did not fit my learning style or my budget and time. So the other options I had was going to a boot camp or taking an online course or doing everything myself. And first I thought about, okay, let's figure out how I can do this on my own. But at the time I found that it was really difficult to create a curriculum because I didn't know anything about UX design, and I also didn't know any UX designers. So I couldn't ask anyone, how did you do this? What did you learn? Which books did you read? Which resources would you recommend? So I really felt lost and didn't know where to start, which books to read, which tools to learn, which methods were important. And so the self learning route also wasn't really for me. So the only thing that was left was either taking a boot camp or an online course. And I wanted something that gave me structure, that had a curriculum that was made by professionals, where I would find reliable information because I didn't have the time or I didn't know also where to find this. So I wanted to find a course that I felt like that would give me a full program. And my decision against the bootcamp was that I didn't feel confident that I would have all these skills that I need to know within 6 weeks. And a lot of boot camps are focused on just a few weeks, like become a UX designer in a month or in 6 weeks, or sometimes even in just a couple of weekends. And I thought, I don't feel confident that I will know everything I need to know in 6 weeks. So, lastly, the one thing that stayed was taking an online course at CareerFoundry, because that one I could also combine with my full-time job. I had a mentor and a tutor, so I had people to keep me accountable and to keep me on track of my studies that I could ask questions to. There was a student community, so I also had people that I could connect with and that I could ask questions about to, and build a network. And mostly this combination of clarity, structure, the backing of professionals, and having time to study this was something that convinced me to take an online course. I would probably still make the same decision today. I'm really happy with this decision and I stick with it. But I'm also aware that nowadays there are way more resources available online. There were not that much at the time that I was looking, and there are also way more reliable resources available online. So just again to stress, any kind of way that I just discussed is a legitimate way to become a UX designer. This is just my experience of how I did it. Then it's time to practice as much as you can. And this has become even more important in a job market like now, because it's not enough to do your online course or your boot camp. It's not enough to just read through some books and then say, okay, I now theoretically know what a UX designer is supposed to do. UX design is really something that you master when you actually do it. So you have to practice as much as you can. Now, how do you practice things? Getting experience is actually your first UX task. And that's also how my UX mentor described this to me. So when I asked her, how can I find my first job? She was like, well, that's why you're a UX designer now. Finding your first job, that's your first UX task. And you have all the tools to solve this. So go about really practicing doing research, creating concepts, testing the concepts, reiterating your work. And the goal here should not be building a portfolio. The goal should really be building your craft. And what I see a lot of people do is they just think, I need to get a portfolio as soon as possible. And I'm just going to get any case study I can, put it in my portfolio, and then start applying. The thing is, recruiters can tell if you don't really know what you're talking about. And the only way to get to know what you're talking about is to do it often and practice as much as you can. So before you focus too much on getting that portfolio done, it actually is way more efficient to really practice your UX skills. Now, how can you do that? You can work for charities. So look around in the neighborhood. Are there any charities that you are really excited about that have a really crappy website? Can you help them improve their website? The same goes for local businesses. Maybe there is a cafe around the corner that you really like to visit, but they have a really bad website. Is there something that you can help them with? Can you do a UX audit? Can you help them set up a web shop? Can you help them improve the information architecture on the website? Another way, actually, the way that I mostly practiced was by joining design jams and hackathons. And the cool thing about this is that you will meet a lot of designers or people that are interested in design. So you also have a chance to build your network. And in these design jams or hackathons, you will work on a certain topic for a very short but intense period of time, for example, for 3 days. And by the end of the 3 days, you have practiced different UX methods, you have practiced the design thinking mindset, and you actually have a case study that you can add and that you can maybe even work more on. You can also find the same thing online, so you can find online design challenges. And what is really important is to keep your eyes open. A lot of people just follow the case studies that are presented to them by the bootcamp or by the online course. And the challenge with this is, if all of your students are doing the same case study, how are you going to stand out? You might have a really fancy looking portfolio in the end, but if a recruiter is seeing the same case study for the 50th time, they're not going to be excited anymore. So keep your eyes open. What are things that you hear in the community is needed? What are things that your friends say, oh, I wish there was a solution for this? So, for example, the way I did it with CareerFoundry is I didn't really follow their case studies one by one. I took it as a starting point and then looked around and thought about what are real problems in my environment. And I found that one of the real problems in Berlin is that when you move as an expert to Berlin, it's really hard to get through all the bureaucracy in Germany because there is a lot of paperwork that you need to do that, of course, is only in German. There are no forms in English. So I thought, what can be a case study to solve this problem? And I came up with some app idea of how you can connect expats with locals that can show you around in the city, that can help you fill out the paperwork, or that can be a translator for you. So these are things that are based in real life. And I think a strong case study is something that is close to you, something that you feel a personal connection to, and something that ideally is also an actual problem. So keep on listening to what your friends are saying. Watch the news. What are things that are happening in the world and that we might need a solution for? And if that is too difficult, then resort to charities, local businesses, and design jams. And you will find that these design jams oftentimes also tackle very current topics. So what might also be helpful is to look at previous design jams and see what kind of topics they used for their design jam. Then, after you've been practicing your things, of course, you need tools to practice with. So you also need to learn the tools of the trade. Now, there is no one perfect tool. And there is this constant debate of what is the best design tool. And the thing is, the best design tool is the one that you can work with and that you feel comfortable with. Personally, I use Figma. I really like using Figma, but I also know designers that used Adobe or that use Penpot or Sketch. They're all good options, and they all are pretty similar in the way that they set up. There might be some features that are not so well developed in one tool over the other, but in the end, you can do pretty much the same thing with all of these tools. So make your choice depending on your budget and your area. So also research on LinkedIn and see what are the tools that companies are asking or looking for in their job descriptions. If you find that a lot of the companies that you're interested in are working with Sketch, then it might be a clever choice to learn that tool first, because that might be more relevant for the jobs that you want to apply to. Like I already said before, don't sweat the tool. It's there to help you, not to define you. So if you're not using Figma, but you're instead using Adobe XD, I'm not sure if you can still use it, but there were people that used it before. It's fine. You are also a designer. It's okay. Not everyone needs to use the same tool. And what is even more important than using design tools is that you practice your soft skills. Because if you remember from the previous slides, I said that good designers are also good communicators. They like to collaborate, they like to do research, they're analytical. So these are things that are way more important to practice. So practice how you present things, practice how you articulate design decisions, practice your active listening skills, your leadership qualities. And these are also all things that you can practice in a really great way during design jams and hackathons, because that's where you have to present your work to the rest of the group. You have to articulate your design decisions and why you went with concept A instead of concept B. So these are things that I also didn't pay so much attention to in the beginning when I started my UX journey, but that in hindsight, I actually think are really important to practice these things. And another great way to practice presenting is by joining design events and starting some kind of small talk with people and kind of training your active listening and learning how to communicate with other people in a way that doesn't feel so awkward, maybe. So that also leads me to the sixth step, which is to network with other designers. And now, before you roll your eyes, building a network can be fun. And I didn't believe it myself in the beginning. I thought, oh, I really don't like networking. It's so awkward. I don't know how to talk like with new people. What should I tell them? How can I build genuine connections? Maybe they think I just want to use them or use their skills or knowledge. So how do I go about that? And the best tip I can give is to build genuine connections. So approach people with a giving mindset. What I found myself was that in the beginning, whenever I went to design events, I thought, okay, I need to find people that are already working as designers and they need to tell me how they found their job and they should do this and they should do that. And what that does is it makes you feel like you're just out there to use other people, and it doesn't really feel so authentic and genuine. So instead, nowadays I go to events I'm still a bit nervous about meeting new people, but I think, you know what? All of the people here are probably really cool people because they're all designers, and maybe I can find some new friends here. So I approach people with a hey, let's share our experiences, both of our experiences. And that makes it way easier to build genuine connections. Now, if you think I really do not like in-person events, they are overwhelming to me, then you can also start online. Online is a really great way to build a network. You can do that by start to share your journey on social media. So create a LinkedIn account, show some pictures of your very first wireframes, or share a status update on what you've learned this week, or an insight you had this week, or a challenge you faced this week. You can join online designer communities via Slack or Discord. There are so many design communities. I think one of the biggest one is called Design Buddies. So you will find a lot of people there as well. You can participate in student community events. This is especially relevant to people that enroll in a bootcamp or in an online course. Make sure that you connect with the other students there. They are a great way to start building a network. And as I said before, join hackathons, join design jams. That's where you will find a lot of experienced designers, and they can also be a great segue into job opportunities. They can give you feedback on your skills. You can meet peers there. So, regardless if you like to go to events in person or online, I think now is actually a really good time to build a network because there are so many designers online that it's actually hard to not build a network because it's so easy to connect to people through LinkedIn or Instagram. The best way, as I said, and I want to stress this once again, is to approach people with a giving mindset. So think about what is something that I've learned that other people might find interesting. And when you go about it this way, I can promise you that building a network is something that can be done and can be fun. And then lastly, we can generate some projects for your portfolio. So I put this as the very last step. And I did that because I notice a lot of people take this as the first step. So they rush through their UX journey, whether it be a bootcamp, whether it be self learning, and they just try to get projects as soon as possible. What happens is that you might have a portfolio that looks really slick, that has a couple of case studies in there. But when you go to a job interview and someone asks, why did you create a persona? You cannot give an answer to that because you just followed a formula. You just thought, okay, every portfolio has a persona, so my case study should have one too. And that's where this practicing your tools comes into play. You need to practice the methods and the tools so that you can explain why you use them. And saying, well, I created this case study in this way because my bootcamp told me to do it like that. That's not a good reason. You need to explain your rationale. So, lastly, and really lastly, focus on your portfolio. And it might sound a bit counterproductive because you might think, I'm spending so much time. When will I finally find a job? Is it not faster if I just create this portfolio and start applying for jobs right away? But I can promise you, no, it will not be faster. So, really take your time to master your craft. And if you can, already focus on the industry that you would like to work in. So for example, if it's your dream to work at Tesla, you might want to look into case studies, hackathons that are focused around automotive or that are focused around energy so that you can craft or so that you can practice your craft in an area that you want to move into. Now, I can imagine that a lot of people are like, I just want to become a UX designer. I don't know in which industry yet, which is totally fine. I also had no clue. But if you know, it is actually an asset, because if you know what kind of companies you would like to work for or what kind of industries you would like to work for, you can really focus the case studies in your portfolio on that particular company or in that particular industry, which will mean that when you start to apply for jobs, you have more specialized knowledge. And that, of course, is a really great way to stand out in the market. Now, there are also other ways to stand out in the market. One I already said before: try to reinterpret case studies from boot camps. So don't follow just the standard formula that they give you, but try to give it your own twist. Try to think a bit about it. How can I make this more personal? What are things that are very close to me? If you're someone that is interested in mental health, what is something in mental health that you can build a case study around? Or if you're someone that's interested in sustainability, what are case studies that you can build around sustainability? Or what are things that are already happening around sustainability, and how can you build upon that? So make it more personal. Find peers to do side projects with. So again, great way to build a network is to go to Slack or Discord, go to design buddies and say, hey, I want to create a case study around this sustainable topic. Is there anyone else that is interested in that? And that's a great way to build a network, practice your craft, create a case study that is relevant to your personal interest. So it's like a super combo. And I think that's a good way to approach your portfolio in general. So try to combine the different steps that I've given you now and see how can I build a portfolio around this? How can I build a portfolio around my interests, my network, the area I want to move into, my strengths, my previous work experience, perhaps, and really see your portfolio as a outcome of your personal journey. And your personal journey can take time. It should take time. You cannot become a UX designer in 6 weeks. Realistically, you're talking about a year. And that is also okay, because would you want to get your leg operated by a doctor that has only had 6 weeks of training? Or would you want to get your kitchen fixed by someone that just went to a plumbing course for 2 weekends? Like, that's not very credible, right? So why would it be the same for UX designers? Allow yourself to take some time to really master your craft. Okay, that was a lot of talking from my side, but we still have 12 minutes left to answer questions. So, Will, I'm sure you've already picked out some of the most challenging questions for me. So, yeah.
We've got a running joke. We've got a bit of a running joke that I always pick the hardest questions, but it's not the truth. I try and pick the best questions. But now is the time for anybody who's been watching this evening. Just drop your questions on Big Marker or LinkedIn, and we'll try and get those answered. I've got a couple of questions myself, Maureen. Not too tough though. But in your kind of experience, how do you think the UX design industry has changed since you've been working in the industry?
I think it has changed in a way. When I started my UX journey, it was still really upcoming. And so I was lucky in that sense that it was easier for me to find a job because there were not that many junior UX designers. On the other hand, it was also more difficult for me because there was not so much information available. So I really had to just invent everything myself with the help of a course, of course. But there were not that many design communities I could rely on. So I think nowadays, if you would start, really leverage all the information that you can find for free. Really leverage all those communities that you have nowadays, because that is such a big support. But I also see that it has become more difficult for people to find a job. And I think it's because in the past years, a lot of people became UX designers without really thinking upfront what they hope to find in a career. So you have a lot of people that might not be as prepared and they find it more difficult to find a job. And that's what I hoped to show with this webinar also, to that it's worth it to really think about your motivation and to really practice your craft, because the more time you invest up front, the more you will stand out to all the other people that don't do that. And it will be easier to find a job in the end then.
I think that's great advice. And another question that we get quite often from prospective CareerFoundry students is, how much in UX design, how much is there a lot of web development? Do you get to use web development skills, or how much UI is there in a UX job? And also, I suppose a follow-up question is that you see a lot of job postings which are asking for UX and UI at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could just elaborate on that a little bit.
I will first answer the question about web development and UI design. I think that really depends on the company. In my own experience, I never coded one single line of code. I never needed to code anything, but I know that there are design roles where this is required or where this is helpful. So I can only say from my experience, I didn't need it, but I think it depends on what kind of company you want to work for. If you want to work for a software company that is driven by developers, I can imagine that web development actually becomes important. For UI design and visual design, I worked as a UX designer before, which meant that I did not need to do any kind of UI or visual design because there were dedicated designers for that. Now I work as a product designer, and in the role I am in now, that means that I am also responsible for the final UI design or for the visual design. So now it is something that has become more important, which leads me to the job titles thing. So UX, UI design, product design, UX designer. Um, I found that a lot of companies have their own definition of what these job titles mean, which makes it really confusing for us, because what means a UX designer for us does not necessarily mean the same thing for a company that you want to apply to. So the way I approached it is I don't pay attention to job titles. I ignore them. I don't care how you call me. I just look at what are the roles and responsibilities in this particular job. And if a company wants to call that product designer, I'm fine. If they want to call it UX UI designer, I'm also good with it. But I would recommend for people that want to become specifically a UX designer to keep in mind that if you're going to apply for product design roles, what that oftentimes means is that you have to also bring some UI and visual design skills. So if you only want to do UX and you don't want to do anything with UI, I would look at very specifically UX design roles, although I'm pretty sure that even there you will find people that are looking for visual design skills. So it's a bit difficult how companies deal with it.
I think that's a really good point. And also, don't be afraid to ask the company specifically what they're looking for.
Yes.
Ask the questions, and then I think you'll discover more about what's going on. Let me just also say one thing about the CareerFoundry UX Design program is that we do also offer a specialization as part of the program. So if you're interested in UI design, you can do the UI for UX designer specialization. If you're interested in web development, you can do the front end development for designers. And if you're interested in voice user interface design, you can also select that. So there's lots of different specializations if you want to go down a more specialized route. So that's just one thing to point out with the CareerFoundry program. I'm going to jump into the questions from the audience. And apologies if I pronounce anyone's names wrong, that's not intentional. But firstly, Marie's asking a great question. Can someone build a career in UX design without a bachelor's degree?
I have a bachelor's degree, but so far, I until all of my current roles, no one has ever asked about my bachelor degree. And also, my bachelor degree is totally unrelated to design. So I am the evidence that you can become a designer without a relevant bachelor's degree. Um, I'm not sure how that will be in other regions because I did find that in other countries it might be more important that you have a university degree. So I would recommend you look into your particular area. But for me, working in Berlin, Germany, no one has ever asked about my bachelor's degree. They don't care about that. And yeah, it's also my what I studied has nothing to do with design.
I had the same experience in Berlin, apart from when I joined CareerFoundry, and CareerFoundry did check. So I think it's very much dependent on also the company. But it's true, lots of people don't check. It's true, and kind of worrying somehow. A couple.
Spent 5 years for nothing.
Hashtag silent here. A couple of other questions, and a lot of people are writing in the comments about self-learning and how they're taking a self-learning approach. Maureen, I know you did the Career Foundry program and you chose that. I know you touched on it a little bit, but maybe just could you explain the reasons why again that you decided to go down a structured approach as opposed to the self-learning approach?
Yeah, for me, the main reason to choose a course over self-learning was because I just did not know where to find all reliable resources. And I also was not motivated to do all of that research myself and to build a curriculum myself. And it's definitely possible because there is so much available online for free, but it will take some time for you to find reliable sources and then check, and maybe there is something that is not explained well, so then you need to do more research. And I just wanted to have that comfort and security of knowing this is a curriculum that is made by professionals. I will find everything I need to know in this program, and that's done. And then I can do additional studying next to it, which I did, and I really recommend that. But I just I just didn't know where to start if I wanted to do it on my own.
Definitely, that's something that we hear from lots of students and graduates who've gone through. I just mentioned also that Career Foundry does offer a job guarantee. So if you don't land a job within 180 days of graduation, you receive a full refund of your tuition. And that's more information can be found on that on the Career Foundry homepage. Leanne's got a great question. Firstly, what career were you in before you made the switch? And how did you manage the course and your job together?
So I originally studied art history. Then, for some reason, which is also unknown to me, I started to work in marketing, which was not for me, and which was also a big reason, a big motivator to change my careers. So I first studied uh, art history, then did marketing, then switched to UX design, and I combined everything with a full-time job. So I was working at a startup whilst also studying at um, CareerFoundry. And the honest answer of how did I manage it was I didn't really have a social life for like a year because I dedicated so much time to my studies and I didn't go out partying in the weekend, and I was just really prioritizing my studies. In hindsight, I could have also just chilled a little bit more. You don't have to like stop seeing your friends. That was just me being totally like too much into it. Um, but yeah, I that's the honest answer. I just studied and worked. That was it.
In terms of work-life balance, apart from the social life, but did you find that it was did you do it kind of like treat-based, so that if you completed a certain exercise or you completed an achievement, that you would do something for yourself? Was there kind of like motivational? Was it purely that you wanted to get through as quickly as possible to get the job?
I was very eager to leave my current job, so that was definitely a reason. But also, I really liked what I was learning. So it didn't feel like I was giving up on something. It just became a hobby to learn more about UX design, and I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to learn even more than I saw in the course. So, in terms of work-life balance, I definitely did not have a good balance in the beginning, but I was very motivated. I noticed near the end of the course that because I didn't take as much of a break as I should, I kind of got demotivated. And that's why I would definitely say if you start this journey now, take breaks and take your time and don't rush. You don't need to do everything in 6 weeks or in half a year. Like UX industry is not going anywhere soon. It will not, there will still be jobs in a year. So yeah, don't burn yourself out. You don't need to do it the way I did it.
I think that's also great advice for anyone who's watching this evening. And picking up on the one point of the UX industry being here in the future, we've had a lot of questions from prospective students asking about the influence of, ChatGPT, AI in general, and Agathia has asked a question: will AI replace UX designers?
Yeah, that question is asked a lot. I don't think so. I don't think it will replace UX designers. If anything, it will make us do our job better because there are things right now that can be automated. For example, I don't think we're at that time yet, but I can imagine in the future that we can use AI to synthesize research or to analyze insights or maybe even to very quickly sketch wireframes based on best practices. But what is still needed and what is essential when you're designing an experience is what are the emotions that you want the users of your product to feel? How can we bring that human element into design? And that is something that AI can't do right now. And I don't think it can make that emotional experience, that human-like experience, anytime soon. And surely there will be parts of our jobs that can be replaced. But personally, I am so looking forward to that because the more of our tasks that can be automated, the more time we have to focus on what is essential. And that is bringing in the right emotions, creating human like experiences. And what AI does is it just takes a large set of data and very quickly synthesize that. But you still need a human being to look at that and think, does that make sense? Is that the emotion we want to go for? Is that ethical? Is that something that fits our values? All of these kind of fluffier questions, an AI cannot answer that. That's why you need a designer for. And the more time we have to do that, I think the better the experience become, the better we can do our job. So I'm pretty sure there will be parts of our job that can be replaced. That's already the case today. But I think that's only good because it means we can focus on what really matters.
I 100% agree. Also, I've hosted quite a few events for CareerFoundry recently and in different fields, but also looking at AI. And I think one great piece of advice from the other events that we've hosted is also to start using AI and chat GPT earlier. So use it, see its limitations, see its advantages, but I think it's good to have the knowledge and don't block it out because it's not going away. So definitely, see what's happening. Also read about some of the ethical implications and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to be using it a lot more going forward, and it's better to start using it as opposed to kind of leaving it out. Jumping back into the questions, Wanda's asking, where can I find design jams and hackathons? Specifically, website sources.
I found my design jams and hackathons I joined by googling design jam and hackathon, and there is one that is the global service design jam, I think it's called. Let me just quickly check that. And like the name says, it's global, so that one is all over the world. That one I can definitely recommend. I just have to find. Yeah, so if you Google Global Design Jam, you will find different cities that pop up. I mean, obviously I get Berlin because based in Berlin, but I found mine through Google to type in design jam, service design jam, design hackathon, and a lot of different things pop up. There is not a particular portal that I go to where all of these are listed, unfortunately. Although there is one website that lists all kinds of um, design conferences. So this link I can share in the chat, but there is no such site for design jams or hackathons.
I think I'll just switch also briefly to the last slide because, wrong document here. Because we've also, Maureen's also listed a load of resources, which are fantastic for people who are just starting out in UX design. I'm going to send around a copy of these slides tomorrow via email. So you're going to get all these links and everything in the email that I send around. I'll also drop the recording too. We've got some questions coming in from LinkedIn too, which I'm just going to jump into, Maureen. Samuel's got a question. How can someone get interviews easily and fast as a UX or UI designer? And how do you showcase your worth up front to the hiring manager or recruiter?
I hope what you take from the webinar that we did tonight is two. I would say two are main points that can help you with this question. One is build a network. So start building a network today. Even if you didn't do anything with UX design yet, join design buddies or join Inclusion Design Lab on Discord. That's already two channels where you can meet with peers and where you can already like start building some that people know you, start building some visibility, and then so that can help you get interviews. And then the other question was around, what was it again?
2 seconds. I just how do you showcase your worth up front to the hiring manager or recruiter?
So that is where the portfolio comes in. And that's what I meant before. So make your case studies personal and make sure that you can show your craft. So what a recruiter is interested in knowing is not, here is a persona, because we all know what personas are. What recruiters are interested in is, here is a persona. This is the reason why I created a persona. So if you want to add value to your portfolio, don't just show the what, show the why. Don't just show, here is a gallery of my wireframes, but show, this is the reason why I made these wireframes based on these research insights. So to prove your worth, explain the why in a portfolio. And another way to get connected to recruiters is to start becoming active on LinkedIn. Share your UX journey on LinkedIn. Start building your network there, because that's where all the professionals are. So that's a really easy way to also get exposed to who is recruiting, who are these kind of people, what companies are looking for people. So place yourself in environments where you know you will find the people that you want to know and that should know you.
I also think don't be afraid to start a dialogue on LinkedIn. I remember, Maureen, you've always been incredibly active with your social media, but also your presence on LinkedIn, asking questions, highlighting projects that you've been working on. And I've also seen it before with students at CareerFoundry. Those are the ones that have been super active and started the dialogue. Even if you're not the expert in the field, just by asking questions, this kind of enthusiasm trickles, and you actually find that lots and lots of people start engaging too and adding you. So it's great advice, and I think Maureen did a fantastic job on the program, but has also done a fantastic job in almost kind of self-promotion and creating a brand on LinkedIn too. I'm just going to post a link to the CareerFoundry blog for people who are watching. We've got a great blog. We've got some fantastic writers at CareerFoundry, and this is some examples of UX portfolios. So I'm just posting that there on Big Market, just in case anyone wants a little bit of inspiration about a UX design portfolio or what it might look like. I'm just going to answer a couple more questions. I am mindful of the time. Timothy on LinkedIn said, I agree with the argument that product development is becoming more relevant than just a UX designer or product designer. What is your take on that?
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, it was a little bit fast. I agree with the argument that product development is becoming more relevant than just a UX designer. And what is your take on that?
So if a product developer is becoming more relevant to a UX designer?
I think
Or
is
what
the
role?
product designer is becoming more relevant than just UX designer. Do you agree?
Oh, if product designer is more relevant than UX designer. I do see
Yes.
I do see a certain trend where more and more companies are looking for product designers. Does that mean it's better? I'm not sure because, like I said before, just because everyone is now looking for a product designer, that doesn't mean they're all looking for the same person. They're still looking for all kinds of different people. I think what is important to keep in mind is that um, you will find more jobs when you look for product designers, at least in my experience, but you will find more specialized jobs if you're looking for UX designer roles. So a UX designer role is still is not the same as a product designer. A product designer, the scope is a little bit wider. So if you really want to do pure UX work, you should look for UX designer roles because a product designer role oftentimes also entails that visual design element that I mentioned before.
Fantastic. And the last question, on the CareerFoundry program, once you've finished the course, you get put through and you've got the job preparation course. How did you find the kind of the preparation that CareerFoundry gave you for, applying for jobs and sitting in the interview process? That's what Samuel's asking.
I'm not the right person to answer this because I was lucky enough to find a job before I finished the course. So before I even started the job preparation part of the course. This should come with a gigantic disclaimer, which is I had my first job 6 years ago. So, or 5 years ago. So that was a completely different job market. I was lucky to find an agency that was willing to take a bet on me and that was willing to take someone on that didn't even finish the course yet. So I can't tell you how this job preparation part goes, but I want to stress that this journey is not a good example to follow nowadays anymore because the market is looking very different.
100%. And for those watching on Big Market, I'm just going to post a link to our career services at CareerFoundry, where you can learn more about everything that we do to support our graduates. So you're not alone in the career change. We've got career specialists and the whole career services team working with you to help you get you in the best position to land your dream job in the tech sphere. So I'm posting that there. And also for everybody watching this evening, and for those of you who are just starting out and want to take the next step, I'm also going to post a link to the CareerFoundry short course. So this is about a 5 or 6 day course. It's completely free and you get a bit of a flavor about what UX design is like and you start working through some tasks and it's spread out throughout a week. So you can easily fit it in. I've just posted the link on Big Marker. Maureen, thank you so much for presenting this evening. It's always a pleasure to welcome you to the events channel. Lots of great insights to becoming a UX designer in 2023. For those of you watching, do check out Maureen's social media channels too. Also, everything that Maureen posts on LinkedIn. It's super valuable content. And all of these links and resources that Maureen shared this evening, I will send them around by email tomorrow, also with the recording of the event too. Also check out Maureen's Instagram, UX Collection. It's also a fantastic source of knowledge for all early stage UX designers, but also if you want any expert advice, do follow that. For anybody who is considering a career change into UX design, we're currently offering career change scholarships to the first 50 career changes worth up to $1,285 or €1,125 off the full price of our UX and UI design programs. On Big Market, I've attached a little sticky note in the top right-hand corner. Just book a call with a program advisor if you're interested in receiving a scholarship. Also, if you want to understand more about the UX industry, maybe jobs in your locality, the CareerFoundry curriculum, our job guarantee. If you've got any questions, just ask our program advisors. They're a super lovely team. I know all of them personally. So say that you watched an event with William and Maureen, and they'll point you in the right direction. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll find a book a call in the description below if you want to book a call and take one of our programs. Also, last but not least, two more things. Maureen is going to be back on the events channel. So go to the CareerFoundry events channel and you'll see some more events with Maureen upcoming this month. And we've also got some fantastic other events. So do check out the CareerFoundry events page. We've got some more specific topics, but we've also got some more general topics. And if you're thinking about other career change programs, we've also got data analytics, digital marketing, product management. There's lots of other ones. So yeah, check out that. And yeah, Maureen, have a wonderful evening, and yeah, see you very soon for another CareerFoundry event.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. And for everyone that still has questions, I left my Instagram account in the chat, so you can find me at ux.collection. If you still have questions, feel free to DM me, and I will try my best to answer all of the questions.
Awesome, thank you so much. And also thanks for all the great questions from the audience this evening. It's always great to see such an engaged crowd. So thank you so much. And yeah, hope to see you on the program soon. And yeah, enjoy your evening, breakfast, lunch, wherever you're joining from. And I will